The hospital room smelled of disinfectant, stale air, and quiet resignation. Machines beeped with mechanical indifference, marking each fragile heartbeat as if they were counting down to an inevitable end. Outside the narrow window, rain slid down the glass in thin silver streams, blurring the city lights into soft patches of color. Evening had settled over the skyline, but inside the room there was no warmth, only a suffocating stillness that pressed against every breath. Lin Xinyue stared at the white ceiling without really seeing it. Her body had become a prison she no longer recognized. Every movement sent needles of pain through her bones. The bruises beneath her sleeves had long since faded into dull yellow stains, but the deeper wounds, the ones hidden beneath skin and silence, had never healed. She had once believed that kindness would earn kindness in return. She had been wrong. The door opened. Soft footsteps entered the room, followed by the familiar scent of expensive perfume. Her mother, Wang Shufan, walked in carrying a designer handbag that cost more than 3 months of Xinyue's hospital bills. Behind her came her father, Lin Xinyue, dressed in an immaculate tailored suit, and her younger sister, Lin Meiqi, wrapped in a fashionable cream-colored coat that perfectly matched the luxury shopping bags hanging from her arm. Not one of them looked at the medical monitor. Not one of them asked how she was feeling. Their attention remained on themselves. "I told you we should have gone to the gala first," Meiqi complained while checking her reflection in her phone. "The photographers were already leaving when we got there." "It wasn't our fault," Wang Shufan replied. "We had to stop by here. People would talk if we never visited." Lin Xinyue sighed impatiently. "Let's make this quick." The words cut deeper than any knife. Xinyue forced herself to smile. "You came." Her voice sounded hoarse, barely recognizable. Meiqi glanced over with obvious discomfort. "You look terrible. I've been in the hospital for months." "I know." Meiqi shrugged. "I just didn't expect you to look this old." Silence settled over the room. Xinyue remembered another time. Another life. Another version of herself who had desperately chased after this family's affection. When she was 8 years old, she had waited outside the school gates in heavy rain because her parents promised to pick her up. They never came. Her grandfather, Lin Xinyue, had found her shivering beneath a tree nearly 3 hours later. When she was 12, she won first place in the city's mathematics competition. Her parents skipped the ceremony because Meiqi had a dance recital. When she was 16, she spent 6 months preparing a business proposal that impressed every executive in her grandfather's company. Her father presented it as his own work. Everyone applauded him. No one even mentioned her name. Still, she forgave them. Again, and again, and again. Because she believed family was supposed to stay together. Because she believed that if she worked hard enough, loved hard enough, sacrificed enough, eventually they would love her back. The doctor entered quietly with a clipboard. He looked uncomfortable. "Mr. Lin." Lin Xinyue turned around. "Yes, we've reached the point where additional treatment offers limited benefit." "What does that mean?" "It means..." The doctor hesitated. "Continuing treatment will be extremely expensive." "How expensive?" He named a number. Lin Xinyue frowned immediately. Wang Shufan's expression hardened. Meiqi lowered her phone. The three of them exchanged glances. Not worried ones. Calculating ones. Xinyue recognized that look. It was the same expression they wore whenever discussing investments. Or real estate. Or business opportunities. Never family. Never love. The doctor continued carefully. "There's an experimental treatment overseas. Success rate. Roughly 60%. And the cost. Another number. Much larger." The room became quiet. Finally, Lin Xinyue folded his arms. "It's impossible." The doctor blinked. "There is still a chance. We've already spent enough." Wang Shufan nodded. "She's right." The doctor looked between them and the frail woman lying in bed. "This decision belongs to the patient." Xinyue slowly lifted her eyes. She looked at her father. "For just 1 second. She hoped. "Just 1 second. Please. Please choose me. Please prove I mattered." Lin Xinyue didn't even hesitate. "We're stopping treatment." The words echoed through the room. The doctor looked stunned. "Mr. Lin. It's over." He signed the discharge authorization without reading it. The scratching sound of his pen against paper felt louder than the heartbeat monitor. Xinyue stared at the signature. One signature. That was all it took. 26 years of trying to earn their love. Ended with one careless signature. The doctor slowly left the room. No one spoke for several moments. Then Meiqi broke the silence. "Mom. The emerald necklace from the Zhao auction. What about it?" "I think the diamonds were too small. We'll order a custom one." "Good." Xinyue closed her eyes. So that was where the money had gone. Not debt. Not bankruptcy. Not hardship. Luxury. Designer clothes. Charity galas. Private clubs. Jewelry. Vacations. Everything except their eldest daughter. Her mother finally walked over. She adjusted Xinyue's blanket with surprising gentleness. For one impossible moment, hope returned. Perhaps. Perhaps there was still love somewhere beneath all the years. Then Wang Shufan leaned down. Her voice became barely a whisper. "Don't blame us." Xinyue opened her eyes. "You were always the practical child." Another whisper. "So practical that sacrificing you made sense." Xinyue felt her heart stop. Not physically. Emotionally. She could no longer hear the machines. could no longer hear the rain. Only her mother's voice. Meichi has a future. You don't. We can't keep wasting money. Footsteps retreated. The door closed. Silence. Absolute silence. Tears slid down Xinyue's cheeks. Not because she was dying. She had accepted death weeks ago. She cried because she finally understood. She had never been a daughter. She had been an investment. A bargaining chip. A convenient sacrifice whenever the family needed one. The monitor began beeping faster. Her breathing grew shallower. Her vision blurred. Memories flooded her mind. The forced marriage. The red wedding dress. The sickly air of the Zhao family. The bruises hidden beneath silk sleeves. The endless nights of violence. The lies. The family needs you. You're doing this for us. It'll only be for a little while. She remembered signing documents she was never allowed to read. Remembered handing over every gift, every allowance, every possession because family shares everything. She remembered learning, far too late, that the Lin family had never been bankrupt. The 30 million yuan the Zhao family paid had never saved the company. It funded Meichi's luxury fashion brand. It paid her uncle's gambling debts. It bought villas, cars, jewelry, everything. Everything except the daughter they sold. She wanted to scream. Instead, her heart gave one final beat. Darkness swallowed everything. Cold, then warmth, then light. Air rushed violently into her lungs. Xinyue gasped. She shot upright so suddenly that the silk blanket slid onto the polished wooden floor. Her heart pounded wildly. She grabbed at her chest. It didn't hurt. She could breathe. Actually breathe. She stared at her hands. Smooth. Healthy. No 4 needles. No bruises. No trembling fingers. Confused, she looked around. Cream-colored walls. Crystal chandelier. Large floor-to-ceiling windows. The familiar scent of fresh lilies. Her bedroom. The one inside the Lin family mansion. No. She whispered. No. She stumbled out of bed. Her legs almost gave out beneath her. She rushed toward the full-length mirror beside the wardrobe. A young woman stared back. Long black hair. Bright skin. Clear eyes. 23 years old. Alive. She reached toward the reflection with shaking fingers. This. Her breathing quickened. This can't. She turned toward the digital calendar on her bedside table. July 7th. 3 years earlier. Exactly 1 week before her forced marriage. The room spun. Her knees hit the floor. She laughed. A broken, disbelieving laugh. Then another. Soon laughter mixed with tears. She pressed both hands over her mouth as sobs escaped despite every attempt to stop them. She wasn't in heaven. She wasn't dreaming. She had come back. She had come back. Back before the wedding. Back before the betrayal consumed her life. Back before she lost everything. Outside the bedroom, footsteps echoed down the hallway. Someone knocked twice. Miss Xinyue? The maid's gentle voice came through the door. Madam says breakfast is ready. Xinyue slowly wiped away her tears. She looked into the mirror one last time. The frightened girl who had begged for scraps of affection was gone. The woman staring back carried 3 years of unbearable memories. She remembered every lie. Every betrayal. Every document. Every hidden account. Every smiling face that had celebrated while she suffered. A slow smile spread across her lips. It wasn't warm. It wasn't joyful. It was calm. Cold. Certain. They sold me once. Her voice was barely above a whisper. This time. She straightened her shoulders. I'll make them pay for every single coin. She opened the bedroom door and stepped into the hallway. Downstairs, her family was already waiting, completely unaware that the obedient daughter they remembered had died in another lifetime. The woman walking toward them had returned from the grave. And this time, she intended to take back everything they had stolen. The dining room of the Lin mansion had always looked like something from the pages of a luxury magazine. Sunlight poured through towering French windows, illuminating polished marble floors and an 18-seat mahogany dining table that gleamed beneath a crystal chandelier. Fresh white orchids decorated the center, while uniformed servants silently carried steaming breakfast dishes to their assigned places. To anyone looking from the outside, it was the picture of a perfect wealthy family. Only Xinyue knew the truth. She paused outside the dining room doorway, taking in every familiar detail. The walls were lined with expensive oil paintings. The grandfather clock ticked with steady precision. Every chair sat exactly where she remembered. Nothing had changed. Except her. In her previous life, she would have entered with a nervous smile, hoping someone would acknowledge her existence. Today she walked in with calm, measured steps. Her father, Lin Xinyue, sat at the head of the table, reading the morning financial reports on his tablet while sipping imported coffee. His expensive suit was perfectly pressed despite the early hour. Her mother, Wang Shufan, was instructing a servant on flower arrangements for an upcoming charity luncheon. Across from them sat Lin Meichi, scrolling through social media while taking photos of her breakfast. No, the lighting is terrible, Meichi muttered, moving her plate closer to the window. Bring another cappuccino. The foam collapsed. A servant immediately obeyed. No one looked at Xinyue. Just like always. She quietly took her usual seat. The maid placed breakfast before her. A simple bowl of porridge. 1 boiled egg. Pickled vegetables. Xinyue stared at the tray. She almost laughed. Meichi's side of the table was covered with smoked salmon, imported pastries, tropical fruit, freshly squeezed juice, and premium coffee. The difference had always been there. She had simply refused to see it. Eat quickly. Lin Xinyue never looked up from his tablet. You'll accompany your mother shopping later. Wang Shufan smiled faintly. We still need to finalize your wedding jewelry. Wedding. The word echoed inside Xinyue's mind. Exactly 7 days. 7 days until they planned to sell her. 7 days until they expected her to smile while becoming a sacrifice. Not this time. She picked up her spoon. I won't be going. 3 pairs of eyes lifted simultaneously. Silence. Lin Xinyue lowered his tablet. What did you say? I have plans. Meichi looked genuinely shocked. You have plans. I do. Her mother frowned. What plans? Personal ones. The silence became noticeably heavier. In this family, Xinyue had never possessed the right to have personal plans. You'll cancel them. Lin Xinyue spoke as though discussing the weather. The Zhao family is important. I know. You should. He finally looked directly at her. They're offering 30 million yuan. There it is, Xinyue thought. The number. The price. The amount they believed her life was worth. She calmly took another spoonful of porridge. I won't marry him. The spoon froze halfway to Meichi's mouth. What? Her mother laughed awkwardly. Stop joking. I'm not joking. Lin Xinyue placed his tablet on the table. His voice became noticeably colder. The engagement has already been agreed upon. I never agreed. The family agreed. That's different. A dangerous silence settled across the dining room. Years ago, these words would have terrified Xinyue. Now, she almost pitied them. They had absolutely no idea the daughter sitting before them knew every secret they had buried. Lin Xinyue leaned forward. This marriage benefits everyone. Everyone. Yes. What exactly do I gain? He looked annoyed. You become Mrs. Zhao. And you'll live comfortably. She smiled. It wasn't warm. Comfortably. The word carried enough sarcasm to make Meichi uncomfortable. You'll have servants. So I can be beaten by my husband in a larger house? The room froze. Her mother immediately stood. Xinyue. What? Watch your mouth. I'm asking a question. Lin Xinyue narrowed his eyes. Who told you such nonsense? No one. She met his gaze without hesitation. I simply don't believe wealthy families are filled with fairy tales. Her father studied her for several seconds. Something felt different. His obedient daughter wasn't arguing emotionally. She wasn't crying. She wasn't begging. She was calm. Far too calm. Finally, he dismissed it. You're overthinking. No. She stood. I'm finally thinking clearly. Without asking permission, she walked away from the table. The servants stared in disbelief. Meichi whispered. What is wrong with her? Upstairs, Xinyue closed her bedroom door and locked it. Her heartbeat remained steady. Step 1 was complete. She had planted doubt. Not enough to stop the marriage, but enough to make them uneasy. She opened the hidden drawer beneath her desk. Inside rested the laptop she had used during university. Still here. Still exactly where she remembered. She powered it on. As the familiar desktop appeared, memories flooded back. 3 years ago, she had unknowingly created nearly every business presentation her father claimed as his own. Every investment analysis. Every market prediction. Every acquisition strategy. Her name had never appeared. Her father accepted praise. She received silence. Not anymore. She logged into the family cloud server. Password. Still the same. Meichi's birthday. Ridiculous. She entered. Access granted. Thousands of files appeared. Contracts. Financial statements. Internal reports. Meeting notes. Exactly as she remembered. But this time, she knew where to look. She navigated directly toward archived estate documents. Nothing. She frowned. In her previous life, the original will had been hidden somewhere else. Think. Grandfather trusted only one person. Old Secretary Chen. Not the family lawyer. Secretary Chen always organized files by project names instead of dates. Xinyue searched one word. Phoenix. Dozens of folders appeared. She opened the oldest one. Nothing. The second. Nothing. The third. Her breathing stopped. There. A scanned document. Last will and testament. Her fingers trembled as she opened it. Every word remained exactly the same. I, Lin Xinyue. She continued reading. Hereby leave controlling ownership of Lin Holdings to my eldest granddaughter, Lin Xinyue. Tears filled her eyes. Not because of the money. Because someone had believed in her. Her grandfather had seen her. Even after all these years, the realization hurt. He had trusted her more than his own children. And they had repaid that trust by forging documents after his death. She quickly copied every file onto an encrypted drive. One backup. Then another. Then cloud storage under a fake account. Never again would she lose this evidence. As she disconnected the drive, another folder caught her attention. Transfer records. She opened it. Millions. Hundreds of millions. Money moving through shell companies. Investment firms. Private accounts. Luxury purchases. Then, one payment. 30 million yuan. Incoming. From Zhao Group. Exactly 1 week after her wedding. The description simply read, Family Agreement. Her stomach twisted. It wasn't a wedding gift. It wasn't a business partnership. It was payment. An invoice. Her life. Reduced to an accounting entry. That evening, rain began falling softly outside. The mansion grew unusually quiet. Xinyue left her room carrying a cup of tea. She wasn't actually thirsty. She knew exactly where her father would be. His private study. The only room in the mansion where servants entered only with permission. She approached silently. The door wasn't fully closed. Voices drifted into the hallway. Her father's. Her mother's. She's acting strangely. I noticed. Do you think she knows? A pause. No. Another voice. Her uncle. Lin Xinyue. The Zhao money is already promised. We can't back out. We won't. What if she refuses? Lin Xinyue laughed. When has Xinyue ever refused us? The three of them laughed together. Xinyue remained perfectly still. She listened. Every word mattered. Her uncle spoke again. The casino won't wait forever. I know. The debt doubles next month. It won't matter. Lin Xinyue poured another drink. Once the Zhao payment arrives, everything will be settled. Her mother sighed. I still feel a little guilty. Guilty? She's still our daughter. Silence. Then Lin Xinyue answered. No. She's an asset. If an asset isn't producing value. He didn't finish. He didn't need to. The laughter resumed. Behind the door, Xinyue slowly closed her eyes. The last fragment of hope she never realized she still carried. Finally disappeared. When she opened them again, there were no tears. Only resolve. She quietly walked away before anyone noticed her. Back inside her bedroom, she opened a notebook. On the first page, she wrote one sentence. Evidence is stronger than anger. Below it, she began making a list. Original will. Transfer records. Marriage payment. Gambling debt. Forged signatures. Tax fraud. Witnesses. She underlined the final item. Witnesses. Revenge wasn't about exposing one secret. It was about building a case so complete that no one could escape. She looked toward the city lights beyond her window. Somewhere out there, a man named Fu Jinghan was building one of the country's fastest-growing business empires. 3 years from now, he would become the only person powerful enough to stand against every family that had wronged her. In her previous life, they had met too late. This time, she intended to meet him first. A slow smile touched her lips. The game has begun, she whispered. And this time, I'm the one making the rules. The rain had stopped by the next evening, leaving the city washed clean beneath a sky of deep blue and silver. From the floor-to-ceiling windows of her bedroom, Lin Xinyue could see the lights of downtown flickering like scattered stars. In her previous life, this view had once comforted her. Now it felt like a battlefield waiting to be claimed. 3 years ago, I walked into this week as a sacrifice. This time, I walk in as a hunter. She closed the encrypted folder containing the copied evidence and checked her phone. An invitation glowed on the screen. The Hushing Charity Gala, hosted by the Fu Group. Tonight, 8 p.m. In her previous life, she had attended only because her mother insisted. The Lin family wanted photographs with powerful people, and Xinyue had been dressed up like another accessory. That was also the first night she met Fu Jinghan. The first and last time he looked at her before everything fell apart. By the time they met again years later, she was already trapped in the Zhao family, bruised and exhausted, while he had become one of the most influential businessmen in the country. Too late. Not this time. Downstairs, the Lin family was preparing for the gala. Meichi twirled in front of a mirror wearing a champagne-colored gown that probably cost more than an average family's annual income. Do I look too elegant? She asked. Wang Shufan smiled proudly. You look like a future Zhao daughter-in-law. Xinyue entered the room wearing a simple black dress with long sleeves and clean lines. No diamonds. No flashy embroidery. Just understated confidence. Meichi frowned immediately. That's what you're wearing? Yes. You look like you're attending a business meeting. Maybe I am. Lin Xinyue looked up from adjusting his cufflinks. Tonight, you will behave properly. I always do. No arguments. No embarrassing comments. The Zhao family will be there. Xinyue met his gaze. And if I embarrass them? His expression hardened. Don't test me. In her previous life, that tone would have made her apologize immediately. Now she simply smiled. I'm not the one you should be worried about embarrassing the family. For a moment, uncertainty flickered across his face. Good. The gala occupied the top 3 floors of the Hushing International Hotel. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over marble floors while a string quartet played softly near the grand staircase. Waiters moved through the crowd carrying champagne and delicate appetizers. Politicians, celebrities, and business leaders mingled beneath enormous floral arrangements that probably cost more than most apartments. The Lin family entered together. Immediately, Wang Shufan and Meichi began greeting socialites, while Lin Xinyue searched for potential business connections. No one noticed when Xinyue quietly stepped away. She knew exactly where he would be. The balcony on the east side of the ballroom. In her previous life, she had accidentally wandered there after feeling overwhelmed by the crowd. She remembered seeing a tall man standing alone with a glass of whiskey, watching the city lights with an expression so cold and distant that she had immediately turned around and left. Fu Jinghan. Tonight, she walked toward him deliberately. The balcony doors opened silently. Cool night air brushed against her skin. He was there. Tall, composed, dressed in a perfectly tailored dark suit. One hand rested in his pocket while the other held a glass of amber liquor. The city lights reflected faintly in his dark eyes as he looked out over the skyline. Even from behind, he radiated control. Xinyue stopped a few steps away. Mr. Fu. He turned slowly. For a brief second, surprise crossed his face. Then it vanished behind his usual calm detachment. Miss Lin. His voice was deep and even. I didn't expect you to know who I was. Everyone here knows who you are. Most people pretend they don't. She stepped beside him, resting her hands lightly on the balcony railing. You don't like crowds. One eyebrow lifted slightly. And you know that because? Because you're standing out here instead of inside making connections. Observant. I've had practice. Silence settled between them, but it wasn't uncomfortable. Xinyue studied the city while carefully choosing her next words. She couldn't simply tell him she had returned from the future, but she could give him something valuable. Your logistics acquisition is failing. His gaze shifted to her immediately. Interesting opening line. Hongyuan Logistics. You bought it 6 months ago. Continue. Your executives think the problem is management inefficiency. It isn't. For the first time, genuine interest appeared in his eyes. Then what is it? Xinyue looked at him calmly. Their Western distribution network is built around a highway expansion project that won't be approved. The government is going to redirect funding to the Northern Rail Corridor instead. He stared at her for several seconds. That information isn't public. No. How do you know? Because I already lived through it. I pay attention, she said instead. Fu Jinghan took a slow sip of whiskey, never looking away from her. If you're wrong, Hongyuan loses a few million. If you're right, I save hundreds of millions. Then I suppose you should find out whether I'm right. A faint smile touched the corner of his mouth. You're very different from the rumors. What rumors? That you're quiet, obedient, and about to become the Zhao family's perfect daughter-in-law. Xinyue looked back toward the ballroom where her family was laughing with wealthy guests. Rumors are often created by people who benefit from them. Fu Jinghan followed her gaze. You don't want to marry Zhao Yuchen. It wasn't a question. No. Then why agree to the engagement? She let out a quiet breath. Have you ever watched someone sell a house? Yes. They clean it, decorate it, and talk about its value. They don't ask the house whether it wants to be sold. Something changed in his expression. Not pity. Understanding. Your family treats you like property. That's the polite version. Before he could respond, the balcony doors burst open. Meichi stepped outside, followed by Wang Shufan. Both women stopped when they saw Fu Jinghan standing beside Xinyue. Surprise quickly transformed into delight. Mr. Fu. Wang Shufan exclaimed warmly. What a pleasant surprise. Fu Jinghan gave a polite nod. Meichi immediately moved closer, smiling brightly. I've heard so much about you. Your speech at the investment summit was incredible. Thank you. Xinyue recognized the performance instantly. Meichi always became charming around powerful men. Xinyue, Wang Shufan said sharply, don't monopolize Mr. Fu's time. We were having a conversation, Xinyue replied calmly. Meichi laughed lightly. My sister isn't usually interested in business. She must be nervous about the wedding and talking about random things. Fu Jinghan's eyes flicked toward Xinyue. I found the conversation quite interesting. Meichi's smile faltered for a fraction of a second. Wang Shufan recovered quickly. Mr. Fu, perhaps Meichi could tell you about her fashion brand. She's launching a luxury line next month. Is she? Fu Jinghan asked. Yes, Meichi said proudly. We're expecting strong investor interest. Xinyue almost laughed. She remembered exactly where the launch money came from. 30 million yuan. Her price tag. Fu Jinghan glanced at Xinyue again. And what are you launching, Miss Lin? Wang Shufan answered before Xinyue could speak. A happy marriage. Xinyue met Fu Jinghan's gaze directly. A negotiation. The balcony went silent. Meichi looked horrified. Xinyue. But Fu Jinghan's expression didn't change. If anything, he looked more intrigued. An honest answer, he said. Wang Shufan forced a laugh. My daughter has a strange sense of humor. Does she? Fu Jinghan asked softly. A waiter appeared at the door, announcing that Chairman Zhao had arrived. Wang Shufan immediately brightened. Xinyue, come greet your future father-in-law. Xinyue didn't move. I'm comfortable here. Now. The command was sharp enough that nearby guests turned to look. For a moment, the old instinct returned. Obey. Apologize. Keep the peace. Then she remembered the hospital room. No, she said quietly. Wang Shufan's face paled. Excuse me. I said no. Meichi stepped forward urgently. Xinyue, stop causing a scene. Xinyue looked at her sister. Do you know what's interesting, Meichi? What? When people buy jewelry, they ask whether it's genuine. When people buy businesses, they perform due diligence. But when people sell daughters, apparently no one asks for her opinion. The color drained from Wang Shufan's face. That's enough. Several guests nearby had clearly heard the exchange. Whispers began immediately. Fu Jinghan set down his glass. Mrs. Lin, I believe your daughter is capable of speaking for herself. The simple statement carried surprising weight. Wang Shufan forced another smile, but her eyes had become sharp with anger. Of course. Xinyue is just overwhelmed. She grabbed Meichi's arm. Come. We'll greet Chairman Zhao ourselves. As they walked away, Xinyue could feel her mother's fury from across the balcony. When the doors closed again, Fu Jinghan spoke quietly. That was reckless. Probably. Your family won't forget it. Good. He studied her for a long moment. What exactly are you planning, Lin Xinyue? She turned toward the city lights. Tell me, Mr. Fu. If someone stole something that belonged to you. Her voice remained calm. Your company, your future, your name, would you simply walk away? Fu Jinghan's eyes sharpened. No. Neither will I. For the first time that night, his cold expression softened into something that looked almost like approval. Then perhaps, he said, we should continue this conversation another time. Xinyue smiled faintly. I'd like that. Inside the ballroom, her family was still celebrating a future they believed was guaranteed. They had no idea the foundation beneath their feet had already begun to crack. And tonight, for the first time, Xinyue had found someone willing to listen when she spoke. The game was becoming much more interesting. The drive back to the Lin mansion was silent. Rainwater still clung to the car windows, turning the neon lights outside into blurred ribbons of red and gold. The chauffeur kept his eyes fixed on the road while the passengers in the backseat occupied themselves with very different thoughts. Lin Meichi stared at her phone, pretending to answer messages. But every few seconds she stole another glance toward her sister. Wang Shufan sat stiffly with her handbag resting on her lap, her lips pressed into a thin line. Lin Guowei had not spoken since leaving the charity gala. Only Lin Xinyue appeared completely relaxed. She watched the city glide past outside the window, remembering another drive home 3 years ago. Back then, her mother had praised Meichi for attracting attention from influential businessmen. Her father had congratulated himself for strengthening ties with the Zhao family. No one had asked whether Xinyue had enjoyed the evening. Tonight was different. She had changed the script. Not enough for anyone to realize she had returned from the future, but enough to make them uncomfortable. That was all she needed. People made mistakes when they were uncomfortable. The moment the front door closed behind them, Lin Guowei's voice echoed through the marble foyer. Study. He didn't look at anyone. He simply walked upstairs. His tone alone was enough to send every servant quietly disappearing into the back corridors. No one wanted to witness what happened next. Xinyue followed at an unhurried pace. She had spent her previous life fearing this room. The private study had always been where decisions were made, where punishments were handed down, where she was reminded that gratitude was expected, not earned. Tonight, she entered without hesitation. Lin Guowei stood behind his massive walnut desk, hands resting against the polished surface. Wang Shufan closed the door. Meichi remained near the bookshelf, visibly nervous. For several seconds, no one spoke. Finally, what happened tonight? His voice was calm, dangerously calm. Xinyue answered just as evenly. We attended a charity gala. His eyes narrowed. You know exactly what I mean. I spoke honestly. You embarrassed this family. I embarrassed your plans. The words landed like a slap. Wang Shufan immediately stepped forward. How dare you speak to your father like that? Xinyue looked at her mother. No. Her voice remained soft. How dare you decide my future without asking me? Silence. Lin Guowei slowly removed his glasses. I've been patient. I noticed. You've become insolent. I've become honest. He walked around the desk until they stood only a few feet apart. When did this begin? When I started paying attention. His expression hardened. You've always been too emotional. Xinyue almost smiled. That sentence. He used it whenever she noticed something inconvenient. When she questioned why Meichi received expensive gifts while she received lectures. When she asked why her grandfather's office had suddenly been locked after his funeral. When she wondered why every achievement somehow carried her father's name instead of hers. Too emotional. Never intelligent. Never observant. Just emotional. Not anymore. I have a question. Lin Guowei folded his arms. What? How much am I worth? The room froze. What? The Zhao family. She met his eyes. 30 million. Where does the rest go? His face changed for barely half a second. But she saw it. Fear. Tiny. Almost invisible. Gone before anyone else could notice. What nonsense are you talking about? So it really is 30 million. Wang Shufan's voice rose immediately. Who has been filling your head with these ridiculous ideas? No one. Then stop imagining things. I'm not imagining anything. She stepped closer. I'm asking where the money goes. Lin Guowei's patience finally cracked. His palms slammed against the desk. Enough. The sound echoed through the study. You will marry Zhao Yuchen. You will stop asking questions. And you will remember that everything this family has belongs to me. Xinyue held his gaze. No. It belonged to Grandpa. Silence. Absolute silence. Meichi looked between them in confusion. What does Grandpa have to do with this? Xinyue didn't answer. She wasn't ready. Not yet. Instead, she watched her father's face carefully. He recovered quickly. Too quickly. Your grandfather entrusted everything to me. Did he? Of course. You must have the will, then. For the first time in years. Lin Guowei hesitated. Only for a heartbeat. But Xinyue caught it. She smiled inwardly. One heartbeat was enough. Dinner that evening was unusually quiet. Servants moved carefully around the table. Even Meichi avoided speaking. Xinyue calmly finished her meal while her family exchanged subtle glances. Every few minutes she caught them watching her. trying to understand, trying to predict. They couldn't. That uncertainty was becoming her greatest weapon. When dinner ended, Meichi unexpectedly followed her upstairs. Wait, Xinyue stopped outside her bedroom. Meichi stood awkwardly in the hallway. What? You've been strange. I've been awake. I don't understand. I know. Meichi crossed her arms. Did someone say something to you? No. Then why are you acting like you hate us? The question almost made Xinyue laugh. Hate? No. Hatred was too simple. She remembered sitting beside Meichi's hospital bed when her sister had broken her arm as a teenager. She remembered staying awake 3 nights helping her prepare for university entrance exams. She remembered secretly selling her own jewelry so Meichi could buy the camera she wanted. She had loved her sister. Completely. Unconditionally. And in return, Meichi had worn necklaces purchased with the money earned from selling her life. Do you remember your 21st birthday? Meichi blinked. Of course. You wanted that limited edition camera. Yes. You cried because Dad said it was too expensive. So, you got it anyway. Meichi smiled faintly. Dad surprised me. No. Xinyue looked directly into her eyes. I paid for it. The smile disappeared. What? I sold every piece of jewelry Grandpa ever gave me. Meichi stared. I didn't know. I know. You never told me. You never asked. Silence settled between them. For just a moment, Xinyue saw genuine confusion. Perhaps Meichi truly hadn't known. Perhaps. But ignorance didn't erase consequences. I have another question. Meichi swallowed. What? If someone paid 30 million yuan to buy me, would you stop them? Meichi frowned. Why would anyone? Answer. Another long silence. Finally. She couldn't. She genuinely couldn't answer. That silence hurt more than words ever could. Xinyue opened her bedroom door. Good night. The door closed softly, leaving Meichi standing alone in the hallway. Midnight. The mansion slept. Xinyue dressed quietly in dark clothing before slipping out through the side entrance. She drove herself. Not toward the business district. Not toward the Zhao estate. Toward the old part of the city. 3 years ago, before his death, her grandfather had often visited a small traditional tea house. Most people believed he simply enjoyed quiet afternoons there. They were wrong. Secretary Chen Ming always met him there. Not at the company. Not at home. There. Because her grandfather trusted almost no one. The tea house remained open despite the late hour. Its elderly owner looked up as Xinyue entered. Recognition slowly spread across his face. Miss Lin. She smiled politely. It's been a while. It certainly has. He poured tea without asking. Your grandfather used to sit right there. He pointed toward the corner table. I know. You look so much like him tonight. Something tightened inside her chest. She sat where her grandfather once had. The owner placed a small porcelain cup before her. He always said you'd come back someday. Her fingers stopped. What? The old man nodded. He left something here. Every heartbeat seemed louder than the last. He told me, if my granddaughter ever starts asking questions, give this to her. The elderly owner disappeared into a back room. Moments later he returned carrying an old wooden box, no larger than a book. Dust covered its surface. The brass lock remained untouched. I've kept it for 3 years. He gently placed it on the table. It belongs to you. Xinyue stared at the box. Her hands trembled. Slowly, she lifted the lid. Inside rested several neatly arranged documents. An old fountain pen, a silver pocket watch, and a sealed handwritten envelope. Across the front were 6 familiar characters. For my granddaughter, Xinyue. Tears blurred her vision. Her grandfather's handwriting. She would recognize it anywhere. With shaking fingers, she opened the envelope. Inside lay a single folded letter. She unfolded it carefully. The first line stole the air from her lungs. If you are reading this, then the people I feared most have finally disappointed me. Xinyue closed her eyes. Her grandfather. He had known. He had seen the greed growing inside his own children long before anyone else did. And somehow, he had prepared for the day his granddaughter would need the truth. She looked down at the remaining documents inside the box. There were far more papers than she remembered existing. Property deeds, share certificates, private correspondence, and beneath them all, a thick brown envelope marked in bold black ink. Confidential. Her instincts told her everything was about to change. She reached for it slowly. Outside, thunder rolled across the sleeping city. Inside the quiet tea house, the first true weapon against the Lin family finally rested in her hands. The letter trembled slightly between Lin Xinyue's fingers. Not because of the cold. Not because of fear. Because for the first time since opening her eyes in this second life, she had found something that hadn't come from memory. This was new. She lowered her eyes and continued reading. My dearest Xinyue, if you are reading this letter, then one of 2 things has happened. Either I have lived long enough to hand this to you myself, or I have failed to protect you. A tear landed silently on the paper. She remembered her grandfather's warm laughter. His patient lessons in the company boardroom. The afternoons he taught her how to read financial statements while other children her age played outside. Numbers never lie, he would tell her. People do. Back then she thought he was simply teaching business. Now she understood. He had been preparing her. Your father believes I trust him. I don't. Your mother mistakes kindness for weakness. She is wrong. Your uncle only sees money. That will destroy him one day. Only you have ever cared about building something instead of taking something. Xinyue slowly closed her eyes. Even years ago, he had seen everything. The old tea house owner quietly refilled her teacup without interrupting. I promised him, the old man said softly. He told me never to open that box. Did anyone ever ask about it? The old man smiled faintly. Many times. Her eyes lifted immediately. Who? Your father. A chill crawled down her spine. He came here 3 days after the funeral. What did he say? He offered me money. How much? Enough to buy this building. And the old man chuckled. I'm old, but I'm not stupid. He looked nervous. He kept asking whether Chairman Lin had left anything behind. Xinyue lowered her gaze. So, her father had known. Not exactly what was inside, but enough to suspect something existed. Grandfather truly had prepared for every possibility. She continued reading. There are documents inside this box that should never enter the wrong hands. The official company records are incomplete. I kept copies elsewhere because I no longer trusted the people around me. If you discover betrayal, do not confront them immediately. Collect everything first. 1 piece of evidence creates excuses. 100 pieces create justice. A small smile appeared on Xinyue's face. Even in death, her grandfather still sounded like a businessman. Beneath the letter rested several sealed folders. She opened the first. Property certificates. Nearly every overseas investment her grandfather had ever made. None appeared in the official inheritance records. The second folder contained photographs. Board meetings. Business dinners. Factory inspections. Ordinary memories. Until one photograph caught her attention. Her father stood beside 2 unfamiliar men. All 3 were shaking hands. The photograph was dated 6 months before grandfather died. Strange. The faces looked familiar. Where? Then it hit her. One of the men eventually became chairman of Shanghai Capital, the same investment firm that quietly acquired nearly 12% of Lin Holdings after grandfather's death. In her previous life, she had assumed it was coincidence. No, it no longer looked accidental. She quickly examined another folder. Meeting minutes. Private financial statements. Shareholder agreements. Then, one document stopped her cold. A stock transfer authorization. Her grandfather's signature appeared at the bottom. Except, it wasn't his signature. Not really. She knew his handwriting better than anyone. The angle of the final stroke was wrong. The pressure looked inconsistent. The spacing between characters was slightly wider. Most people would never notice. She noticed immediately. Because he had spent years teaching her calligraphy, someone had copied his signature. Very well. But not perfectly. She whispered. Forgery. The tea house owner looked over. What is it? My grandfather never signed this. The elderly man's expression darkened. I was afraid you'd say that. You knew. I knew your grandfather stopped signing documents during his final month. He told everyone to wait until he recovered. Xinyue looked back at the paper. This authorization was dated exactly 2 weeks before his death. Impossible. She carefully placed every document back inside the folders. Then she reached the thick brown envelope marked confidential. Unlike the others, it was sealed with red wax. Her grandfather's personal seal remained intact. No one had opened it. She broke the seal carefully. Inside, there was only one sheet of paper. Not legal documents. Not contracts. Just a list. 7 names. No explanation. No titles. Simply 7 names. She recognized 3 immediately. Her father. Her uncle. The family lawyer. The remaining 4, she had never heard before. At the bottom, her grandfather had written only one sentence. Trust none of them until you know why these names belong together. A puzzle. Not evidence. A puzzle. Which meant the truth was bigger than stolen inheritance. Much bigger. Outside, thunder echoed across the city. Her phone vibrated. Unknown number. She hesitated before answering. Hello. A calm male voice replied. Miss Lin. She froze. She recognized that voice. Fu Jinghan. I hope I'm not calling at a bad time. No. Actually, she glanced at the wooden box. Your timing is perfect. I verified what you told me. Her heartbeat quickened. The logistics company? Yes. My analysts worked through the night. And you were right. His voice remained calm. But only someone with insider information should have known. I don't have insider information. I believe you. That surprised her. You do. I believe you know things. A pause. I simply don't know how. She smiled slightly. Fair enough. I'd like to invite you to lunch tomorrow. She remained silent. In return, he continued, I'll answer one question honestly. Only one. You'll discover I value honesty. So do I. Another brief silence. Finally. I'll come. Good. I'll send the location. The call ended. Xinyue stared at the phone for several seconds. In her previous life, Fu Jinghan had never contacted her first. Everything was changing faster than expected, which meant she had to move faster too. The old tea house owner watched quietly. Your grandfather once told me something. What was it? He said. The old man smiled. When Xinyue finally stops asking why people hurt her, she'll start asking how they profited. Xinyue laughed softly. A genuine laugh. Perhaps the first one in years. He knew me too well. He loved you very much. She carefully packed every document back into the wooden box. This isn't safe here anymore. I assumed you'd say that. The old man reached beneath the counter and produced a small brass key. Your grandfather left this too. What does it open? I don't know. He never told me. She accepted the key. It felt surprisingly heavy. Old. Worn smooth from years of use. There was no label. No markings. Only one engraved number. 317. Another mystery. As she stepped outside, the rain had begun again. She looked up at the dark sky. 3 days. Only 3 days remained before the engagement ceremony. 3 days before the Zhao family transferred 30 million yuan. 3 days before her previous life had collapsed. She tightened her grip on the wooden box. Not this time. Across the street, hidden behind rain-speckled windows of a black luxury sedan, a man quietly watched her leave. He lowered the newspaper covering his face. His eyes followed every step she took. He picked up his phone. Chairman. His voice was low. Miss Lin has the box. A pause. No. She doesn't know we're watching. Another pause. I'll continue following her. The call ended. The sedan's headlights remained off as it silently pulled away into the rain. Xinyue never noticed. For the first time since her rebirth, someone else had begun making moves. And somewhere in the darkness, a secret buried long before her grandfather's death was beginning to awaken.